It was a quiet evening, the kind that makes you appreciate the serenity of a peaceful home. The sun had just set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink before it sunk completely below the horizon. Inside, life moved at its leisurely pace. Chairs creaked as I walked through the living room, the faint hum of a ceiling fan adding to the calm. But then something unusual happened. There was a sudden movement in the hallway right where I had just placed my bag down. My heart raced as I spun around, expecting a visitor or perhaps an intruder. But all I found was the faintest glimmer of light, too fleeting to make out anything clearly. Curiosity piqued. I turned toward the door and noticed that the hallway wasn't empty. There stood someone, or rather something, right in front of me. The figure was cloaked in a shadow, its face hidden by a hood, but the presence alone was palpable. It moved with a gracelessness that made one's blood run cold. The noise wasn't from any known source, the creak of a door or the sound of my own heartbeat. It was something else, entirely. A whisper so soft it could have been mistaken for the rustling of leaves in the wind, but deepened into something far more insidious as it grew louder, winding its way through the silence. I hesitated, my feet moving uncertainly. Maybe I shouldn't have opened the door just then, or perhaps it was the best thing that ever happened. The figure stepped closer, its form flickering slightly with each tentative movement as if in slow motion. The air grew thick with an eerie stillness, breaking the tension that had been building since the first unseen presence. And there it was. Something I couldn't ignore. A glowing orb, like a sickly sweet light taking root deep within the floorboards of my home. It shimmered faintly, almost as though alive itself, and slowly expanded until it claimed full dominion over the room. The glow intensified, pulsating with an intensity that sent chills racing down my spine. My heart pounded in my chest as I turned toward the source of the orbs. There, in the center of the room, stood a figure, a spectral apparition, if such a term could apply, hovering eerily above the floor. Its form was ghostly, almost impossibly small compared to its imposing presence, and yet it exuded an aura of power that left anyone nearby. John Lee. The orb flickered, its glow growing brighter with each passing second. It seemed to pulse rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat, before suddenly expanding into a sphere of light, a sphere so large that the entire room was engulfed within its radiance. My breath hitched as I looked upon this mysterious visitor. The spectral figure stepped back just enough for me to see it clearly, and to my astonishment, there was no visible explanation to its presence or purpose. It simply stood in the center of the room, waiting, watching. The orbs gradually faded, leaving behind a faint glow that lingered in the air. I couldn't help but wonder, what exactly had drawn this visitor to my home? Was it something simple like the warmth of the evening sun, or was there an agenda more sinister? As I stood there, the air still thick with unease, I realized that I wasn't alone in this moment. The spectral figure watched me as though expecting company. Though it chose not to make its presence known by appearing again, it simply stood there, motionless and unyielding. And so the night went on. But the fear of that fleeting shadow in the hallway, and the lingering sense of mystery surrounding my home remained with me long after the sun had dipped below the horizon once more. It was a reminder of how little we truly know about this world, even as we attempt to escape it. And perhaps, just maybe, there are some forces at play that would rather have us remain in ignorance, or perhaps they seek us out for reasons we cannot fathom. In any case, I had no choice but to confront the truth, whether it was in the light of the orbs or the shadow of the unseen visitor standing watch outside my door. For somewhere deep within this house, there lived, or rather existed, a being that watched over me every night, waiting for just the right moment to make its presence known. And now, with that knowledge, and the lingering fear that it would one day come knocking again, I knew I had no choice but to face whatever lay ahead. The world was a dangerous place, and sometimes the scariest truths were the ones we couldn't see coming. The city's tunnels were silent once more as the sun dipped below the horizon. The air carried an unusual heaviness, as if something profound had been pondered within those unmarked tombs. Inside the unmarked grave, the Guardian stood, his presence still lingering, in the same spot where he delivered his final warning 3 installments ago. He felt a pull, an unavoidable force that drew him forward. His dagger was there, its hilt trembling, with an almost imperceptible vibration. He reached out, and it returned to him with a familiar warmth. Yet something new was present this time. The air seemed to hum with energy, as if the dagger's essence had been unleashed. The Guardian hesitated for a moment, then lowered himself with a finality he hadn't felt since his first appearance in the tunnels. His voice came out cold and measured. Always carry a dagger. This time, though, something different happened. The dagger didn't merely quiver. It emitted a faint, resonant glow. It seemed to hum with a life of its own, a testament to the Guardian's presence here. The glow grew stronger as he spoke, each word resonating with the dagger's influence. When he finished speaking, the glow intensified until it filled the space around him. A strange vibration rippled through the air, carrying with it the faint sound of someone calling his name. The Guardian turned slowly, and there it was, the figure of a man in tattered clothes approaching him. His face was etched with determination. The dagger's glow pulsed brightly, as if anticipating the impact. Without hesitation, the Guardian raised his hand, and the dagger flew at the intruder, its path clear. The man stumbled back, but before he could react, the dagger struck true, slicing through his arm effortlessly. The dagger landed in his hands with a satisfying clang, and the glow faded as quickly as it had appeared. The man looked around frantically, his face etched with shock and disbelief. He turned toward the unmarked grave, which now felt haunted by the presence of the dagger. As he walked away, the man paused. In his hand, he held the very dagger that had guided him from the shadows. His eyes never left the object as it hung in midair. The Guardian's mark was still there, a silent reminder of what he had done. The man stepped into the light of the setting sun, carrying with him the dagger and the knowledge that he would not be alone. The Guardian watched him go, his heart heavy but unshaken. There was no turning back now. The mark was cast, and the darkness would find its way into him eventually. But as he disappeared into the horizon, one thing remained clear to the Guardian. The dagger's power was still with him. He could feel it in his bones, a promise of things yet to come. And though he might have thought he was done, the Guardian knew that the battle for his mark would never end. He closed his eyes once more, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over him. The unmarked grave was now his final resting place, and as he stepped back into the shadows, he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead would be faced with this dagger at his side. The air grew still again, and the glow of the dagger faded into nothingness, leaving only the faintest hint of its presence in the distance. The Guardian sighed deeply, a sense of peace finally settling over him, for in the end he had done what he could to protect those who would inherit his mark. And with that, he disappeared once more, leaving only the trail of darkness and the faint echo of the dagger's glow behind him.